What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of volleyball, such as Florida State taking down number 6 Pitt in 5 on Friday. But there was another big upset that happened earlier in the week as Georgia taken down the Razorbacks of Arkansas, number 8 Arkansas that is, in straight sets. The Bulldogs have some bite to them after all. Also, how about Georgia Tech taking down number 3 Louisville? That ACC race is getting really tight. And we had some high school girls volleyball happening over the weekend as Mater Dei sweeping Mira Costa, making me eat some crow as they win championship number 7. Now they'll focus on the CIF state playoffs. Also, the Pro Volleyball Federation just released a schedule last week, as I'll be going over that. And we also got to see Long Beach State, as well as Grand Canyon and UC San Diego over the weekend. So hand me a volleyball, set the net, because I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday morning, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 219 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be live without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on formerly known as Twitter, X, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. We also have a Facebook page for those that still use Facebook. All you just have to do is type in the word IE Sports, then Radio in the search bar, like us, and then boom, that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and it is a daily updated website which has all of our podcasts dedicated to a page dedicated to each podcast, including this one. And it also has your daily sports news. You also can meet all of us podcasters and fans of each sport. You also can see us on our blog site. We have a Hall of Fame. You definitely want to check out the IE Sports Radio website. And we also have Fans of the Month, which needs to be fired up pretty soon, and a community forum, and we have a merchandise shop. For the last 9 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports days around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans. And with your help, we are ready to continue to produce great content and great interviews and great everything to help you, the sports fans, get your fix in terms of content. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit www.planetjerky.net and place your order. Follow Planet Jerky on Instagram at Planet Jerky for all of your updates on Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Once again, huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is by going to Instagram at set_point IESR and on X at set_point IE. And then you can follow me, Teran Rodriguez 1 on Twitter or X at Teran Rodriguez 1, but you probably don't. All right, let's get on into that volleyball content. So we're going to start things off differently just because I'm starting this live recording off earlier than expected. Currently, it is 10:43 a.m. Pacific time, and the AVCA Women's Volleyball Coaches Polls have not been released just yet. So we're going to save the NCAA women's volleyball content for later. But let us go over the CIF Southern Section Division I girls volleyball final between Mater Dei and Mira Costa. Mater Dei of Santa Ana and Mira Costa of Manhattan Beach. All right, so this was probably the most highly anticipated final anyone could probably want to see, just because both of these teams were two of the top-ranked teams, not only in California, but they're two of the top-ranked teams in the nation, as I was anticipating a big-time matchup right here. And early on, it was a really good matchup, as Mater Dei jumped out to an early 10-5 lead, and I did not know that there was going to be a media timeout at 10 points, or through the first 15 points, depending on what Bally Sports wanted. This game was televised on Bally Sports. It used to be on Fox, but then I guess Bally Sports and the CIF decided to have a little bit of a partnership. All right, but Mater Dei was leading 10-5. They actually had a consistent lead throughout most of set number 1, and they eventually led 24-20. Isabel Clark was just going off in that first set, and she is bound for San Diego, so Torero fans get excited to have Isabel Clark. So it was set point for Mater Dei, but Mira Costa came back with 3 straight points, including a block, which forced Mater Dei to burn one of its timeouts, and it was crucial, and then they eventually got a kill, which just clipped the tape and fell onto the Monarch side, which is basically the dirty kill, as I like to call it. So it's 24-all, and Mater Dei needed, I want to say it was 7 set points, if my math serves me correctly, but Mater Dei eventually took the set off of a block from Emma Kingston, their freshman middle blocker, who is a whopping 6'4". But in that first set, Isabel Clark had 9 kills, by my count. By the way, my numbers aren't really the most official numbers, but if there are any other different numbers, then I'll let you all know. But I had 9 kills down for Isabel Clark in that first set. So for Mira Costa, they had Audrey Flanagan leading the charge with 4 kills, as well as another player with 4 kills. And honestly, Mira Costa didn't play bad. The fact that they almost came back to tie that set was practically, or to tie the set was practically amazing. And the fact that they dodged 6 set points was also amazing. It's just that Mater Dei just had a little bit more in the tank, and Mira Costa getting off to a slow start is kind of not ideal. And it was Simone Roslin who also had 4 kills to go along with Audrey Flanagan. Like, Audrey Flanagan can really do damage for Mira Costa, but if Charlie Furbringer, the setter, who is bound for Wisconsin, can get everyone involved, it makes Mira Costa a much better team. The problem with Mira Costa is that one of their top players, Chloe Hines, who is a senior on a fairly young team, she was injured, and I kept seeing her getting treatment and her getting massaged with a massage gun by the trainer, and that was a little concerning. I forgot who number 5 was, but I'm like, oh shoot, that's Chloe Hines. And then the second set, it kind of showed and reflected that Chloe Hines was missed by Mira Costa, because Mater Dei was just built off of that first set momentum. They got contributions not only just from Isabel Clark, they got contributions from Laylee Ostavar, and they also got contributions from Samara Gordon. Gordon is bound for University of Michigan, so Wolverine fans, you better get excited. And Aaron Virtue is going to get a good one as well. Mater Dei eventually took set 2, 25-15. Even though they missed 3 serves, they got 2 aces. Mira Costa, I give them a lot of credit. They actually were close to, I think they were only like 1 or 2 points down, like midway through the set. But they had an out-of-rotation violation, which eventually wound up giving the ball back to Mater Dei, and it eventually swung the momentum back to Mater Dei. And that is not an ideal violation to have. You cannot get an out-of-rotation violation. That's just, especially at this point of the season, that's just kind of a mental error, in my opinion. So then set 3, Mira Costa actually jumped out to a good, sizable lead, but then Mater Dei took the lead at 10-9 at the media timeout, as the media timeout came at 10 points. Yeah, it's so weird. We have the NVA with 16 points as their media timeout. We have NCAA, which is 15 points, and I think everyone else uses 15 points. And then high school volleyball, in terms of nationally televised games, or televised games in general, it's 10 points. Can't we all just have 15 points as the media timeout? Anyway, so Mater Dei eventually caught up to Mira Costa, but Mira Costa was really determined to have a a fourth set at the very least. Well, Mater Dei was just on a roll, as Isabel Clark was just doing her thing. Like I said, Layli Ostavar was just phenomenal as well. I had her down for 20, or not 21, that's her number, 7 kills. Gordon had 6 kills in my numbers. I'm sure Mater Dei has their numbers up on Max Preps, which I'll probably confirm in a little bit. I have to give it up to Juliet Kakis, who is bound for Brown. She really set the offense extremely well, and she's come a long way. I will also give a little bit of a quick note that the middles were not utilized a whole lot by either team, but I want to say in set 3, Mater Dei started to really use their middle, Addison Cody, who is only a sophomore, and Mater Dei's middles are going to be something scary to watch for in the upcoming years. And Mater Dei was just building off their momentum. And I also have to give a big recognition to Melissa Kawa, the libero for Mater Dei, who is bound for Stanford. She was just a digging dynamo. I did not get her numbers, but what I did get was the walk-off service ace, as that is probably the most bone-chilling way to win a match, via a walk-off service ace. And it wasn't even off the defender. It just tagged the back line, and it was just pure jubilation for Mater Dei, as they wound up winning championship number 7 and the 4th under Dan O'Dell in Division 1. All of the championships from Mater Dei under Dan O'Dell has come under Division 1. Not trying to take away from Craig Pizzanti, former Set Point guest and friend of the show, who won the previous championships with Mater Dei back in the early 2000s, but I really have to give it up to Dan O'Dell. His team really came prepared. They really served tough, and they really brought pressure on Mira Costa. And I really have to give some recognition to Layli Ostavar. So after last week's show, she actually did hear the show, and she actually heard my prediction saying that Mira Costa was going to win, and she said, we'll see what happens. She didn't say it in a mean way, but she did tell me that she just said it in a nice way, and eventually I interviewed her afterward, and I ate my crow in that interview. I will also just make this as a mental error on my part, and this is something I really am kicking myself over. So, I totally forgot Mater Dei played Mira. You all remember that Mira Costa and Mater Dei were 1-1 against one another. Mira Costa won the first meeting back in Manhattan Beach. However, something I forgot about was that Mater Dei actually came back from a tournament, and this is something I did not know, and I have to really thank Layli Ostavar for telling me this. She actually messaged me the morning after the final, and she said one thing I did not consider after the loss is that Mater Dei came from Texas, and that's a quick turnaround right there. Coming from Texas, they're jet lagged, they're tired, but the big thing is that Mater Dei actually was not at 100%, as they had their middle blocker injured, and they were exhausted, and they were not without their full starting lineup. So, to me, I really feel, I wouldn't say I feel silly for predicting Mira Costa, but here's my thing. That is a complete error on my part, and if I had known that, I maybe would have picked Mater Dei, but honestly, I thought this was going to be Mira Costa's chance to win. And this is probably their best chance to win. This year and last year were Mira Costa's best chances of winning. Unfortunately for Mira Costa, they ran into Sierra Canyon last year, which had a plethora of good, talented seniors like Olivia Babcock, who's now playing at Pitt. And then this year, they just ran into a Mater Dei team that was just so much better than that first meeting, which I really have to give a big shout to Layli Ostavar. I really forgot about that first meeting. And if I had known that, if I had just remembered that Mater Dei had played in that tournament, then played against Mira Costa, I would have for sure picked Mater Dei. And that's no knock on Mira Costa. I'm not trying to say Mira Costa had no shot at winning, but I'm just saying that the first meeting against Mater Dei and Mira Costa probably shouldn't have counted, just because that's just such a tough turnaround coming from Texas. Then you're jet lagged, like I said, and then you've got a lot of high emotions riding high as you've got some pressure going into the opponent's gym. Like I said, and yeah, they've had to play that game on the road, and that's just a tough turnaround right there. So all in all for Mater Dei, I really have to give them credit, and I was totally wrong. Now, I will also say that Mater Dei winning that first set was what really gave them the momentum boost that they needed. If Mira Costa wins that first set, we'll never know what happens, first and foremost. But I want to say if Mira Costa wins that first set, it maybe is a different outcome. Maybe Mira Costa has the momentum riding on into set number 2. Or maybe Mater Dei just uses that as more motivation to try to take the second set and the third set and possibly the fourth set. But all in all, Mater Dei really showed their stuff, and they really were impressive. And they served tough, and all in all for Mater Dei, they just played a complete game. That is probably and definitely their most and best game of the season. And it's probably their most complete game of the season. And I have to give Dan O'Dell his flowers. He really had his team prepared for this matchup. This is why you have these matchups in the final. Because both of these teams basically did not drop a set through the playoffs. And it could have gone either way. And I hate that I was wrong, and I'm eating my crow. But honestly, Mater Dei really showed why they've won 3 CIF championships prior to the one they won last Saturday under Dan O'Dell. But for Mira Costa, I had Audrey Flanagan with 11 kills. Rosalind had 7 kills. I'm probably going to mispronounce this girl's name when it comes to Mira Costa, but she is one of the middles as she, number 5. Hang on while I pull up the roster. Dean Stasso. Oh, wait. What the heck? Apologies. But Mira Costa, they didn't really utilize their middles a whole lot. Well, they utilized their middles quite a bit, but it wasn't overly as... Well, I mean, they utilized their middles more than Mater Dei did. But I will say offensively. But I will say, I kind of expected more from Bryn Schenkel. Rachel Moglia had 6 kills, while Bryn Schenkel only had 2. I kind of expected a little bit more from Bryn Schenkel, because she's 6'4", but maybe Mira Costa just wanted to shuffle up everything. And then Charlie Furbringer added 5 kills as well. And like I said, Chloe Hines only had 3 kills, just because she was kind of battling injury from the sideline, and that was not ideal having Chloe Hines injured, but that wasn't the reason why Mira Costa lost. The reason why Mira Costa lost is because Mater Dei just brought so much pressure against them, and honestly, losing that first set was what toppled everything like Jenga sticks, or Jenga bricks. So Mira Costa and Mater Dei are both the number 2 and number 1 seed respectively, based in the CIF state playoffs or regionals, as basically Mater Dei has the home court advantage throughout the entire regional playoffs, and then for state, if they make it to the state final, it'll be played at Santiago Canyon College in Orange, which was played last year. So yeah, that's how Mater Dei and Mira Costa are the number 1 and 2 seed. Now the number 3 seed is Cathedral Catholic, which won the CIF San Diego section championship over Torrey Pines, which I'm not ultimately surprised that happened, just because Cathedral Catholic has a pretty darn good team, and the fact that they're on a whole other level, in my opinion. They're not the strongest. They're not as strong as last year, but they're still just as good. And they do have a win over Mater Dei, but I imagine Mater Dei wasn't 100% back then. And that win over Torrey Pines was actually a 5-set thrillers over Torrey Pines. And when it comes to Torrey Pines and Cathedral Catholic, all bets are off when it comes to those two teams, because those teams are like bitter rivals with one another. So I really have to give Cathedral Catholic a lot of credit for their win over Torrey Pines. That's a pretty darn good win, if you ask me. And then the 4th seed in the state playoffs, which is the CIF Open Division, not Division 1, it's Huntington Beach, which I kind of figured they'd be the number 4 seed. They've been consistent most of the year. Their only true bad loss was to Edison, but Edison really performed well in their division in the CIF Southern Section playoffs. And all in all for Huntington Beach, they'll be at home. They'll take on Torrey Pines, which it'll be the second meeting between Huntington Beach and Torrey Pines, as the Oilers took down the Falcons in 3 sets in Durango in Las Vegas. Then the 6th seed is Marymount. They will be playing Cathedral Catholic at Cathedral Catholic, so it'll be a Los Angeles versus San Diego showdown. The 7th seed is Sierra Canyon, as they get to face Mira Costa. Now, this is going to be an interesting matchup. I don't think Sierra Canyon is anywhere near as good as they were last year, but it all depends on what's going to happen, how good Sierra Canyon plays. If Sierra Canyon can play as good as they have been, they did in the league, I want to say they might have a shot at winning, but I don't think they could beat Mira Costa. I think if Mira Costa wants redemption, they want another chance at Mater Dei, and I really don't think Sierra Canyon is the team that they were last year, and it kind of showed in the Southern Section playoffs. And that's not discrediting the work of Stephanie Wigfall and her team. I think Sierra Canyon has some stud players. The only problem is that they just don't have the horses to keep up with everybody. They didn't have the horses to keep up with Mater Dei. They didn't have the horses to beat their league rival Marymount in the CIF Southern Section playoffs, and they barely were able to beat Palos Verdes. So, in my opinion, I think that Mira Costa is going to win, but I just think it might not be as easy as everyone thinks it's going to be. And you also got to remember that Mira Costa is coming off of that heartbreaking 3-set loss to Mater Dei, and you also have to factor that in. And then the 8th seed, which will have the unfortunate honor of playing Mater Dei in the CIF Open Division State Playoffs, is Los Alamitos. Now, I kind of figured Los Alamitos was going to be somewhere in the 6 through 8 range, but unfortunately, they got the worst seeding possible. They are the number 8 seed, and this is kind of where winning that matchup against Alemany hurts them. Yes, I understand you play to win the game. You don't play to tank. But honestly, you play basically to win the game, and I understand winning that game meant a lot for the seniors just because you're playing in the highest division possible when it comes to the CIF Southern Section playoffs. But that win did have Los Alamitos in the Open Division. If they lose that matchup to Alemany, then Los Alamitos is in Division 1, and it basically has them as a pretty high seed, in my opinion. Because Alemany is a high seed in Division 1. And the difference between Open Division and Division 1 is that Open Division is an 8-team bracket, Division 1 is a 16-team bracket, in the regionals, that is. In the entire tournament, it's basically a 32-team bracket in Division 1, and then in the Open Division, it's a 16-team bracket. God, if I could pronounce it correctly. A 16-team bracket in the Open Division between Southern California and Northern California. So all in all, for the CIF state playoffs, everything is finalized, and I'm looking forward to seeing what all these teams can do. So that's basically going to be it for the high school girls volleyball portion of this show. It was a very fun match, and I totally enjoyed it. I was a little surprised it ended in 3, but again, I forgot to factor in that Mater Dei was banged up. They were tired and exhausted from their trip to Texas, which obviously you can't get too high on the wins, but you can't get too low on the losses. And yeah, they had to travel to Mira Costa, which obviously can kind of rattle a team, especially coming off of a tournament win. So there was that right there. Before I continue on, I gotta give a shout to the live chat room. Jen B says, "Hey Teran, have a great show. Thank you." And Davidson Crook says, "What's good?" Just talking some high school girls volleyball that I covered over the weekend. I covered a lot of volleyball over the weekend, but with that being said, let's get on into the NCAA Women's Volleyball Week 11 recap. So I'm gonna be, since currently right now it's 11:04, the AVCA coaches poll has yet to be released. So, unfortunately, I can't go over the current top 25. But at the time, I will eventually be able to go over it I'll eventually go over it live, which I think is cool. Anyway, so Week 11 recap is a go. So starting on Tuesday, we had UC Santa Barbara taking down Cal Poly in 4 sets at Mott Gymnasium in San Luis Obispo, 25-23, 25-21, 24-26, and 25-15. I'm just going to this is kind of a brief little recap for me when it comes to this matchup, but honestly, I'm not ultimately surprised Santa Barbara wound up winning this matchup, even though they kind of had to go on the road to facing Cal Poly, and it's not an easy gym to win at. Mott Gymnasium is a pretty tough place to win at, but this kind of reinforces that Cal Poly, unfortunately, just doesn't have the horses to keep up with the likes of some of the big dogs in the Big West Conference. And you also have to remember that this is a Cal Poly team that survived a 5-setter against UC Irvine and Cal State Fullerton. Am I saying Cal Poly is bad? Absolutely not. They're certainly not bad, but I will also just say I don't know if they're a part of that top 3 echelon with UC Santa Barbara, Hawaii, and Long Beach State. And that kind of concerns me just because when it comes down to it, they could be playing a first-round game against either UC Davis or a UC Irvine. But all in all, for UC Santa Barbara, a win is a win for them, and winning on the road is certainly no easy feat, and they continue to have their vice grip over the Big West Conference. Unfortunately for them, they will have to win in the Big West Conference tournament, but even if they don't win in the Big West Conference tournament, I think that they'll still have a good shot at making the NCAA tournament, because even though they lost to Drake and then they have a loss to UC Irvine, I think that this team can still do some damage. Jumping on over to Wednesday's matches, we only have one notable matchup, but jumping to the SEC, we had Georgia taking down number 8 Arkansas in straight sets, 25-22, 25-19, and 25-22. So my takeaway for Georgia is this. Remember how I said that Georgia is well known for pulling off upsets in the SEC? Well, this is obviously the biggest example. Georgia had not had a ranked SEC win, and now they do. And this is probably the biggest win of the season, surpassing the Georgia Tech win. And Georgia was led by Sophie Fisher, who had 22 kills, and she had 441, which was pretty darn impressive. She also had 7 blocks as well. Casey Evans also had 12 kills, and Erica Staunton had 10 kills as Georgia hit 276, outblocked Arkansas 8-6, and outdug them 42-34, while Georgia only missed 3 serves while having 5 aces. Arkansas was led by Jillian Gillen, who had 16 kills, while Maggie Cartwright had 9 kills. Arkansas hit 222, which wasn't bad, but they only had 2 aces, and like I said, they got outdug and outblocked. So my takeaway for Arkansas is this. This is kind of not... I mean, Georgia isn't a bad team, but you cannot... if in a conference that you just cannot fall behind in, that is probably the most not ideal loss you could have. Especially when you're trying to keep up with the likes of Kentucky and Tennessee. That's just not a convenient loss for Arkansas. And if you're an Arkansas fan, you're probably just pulling out your hair wondering, why did this team lose on the road? This shouldn't have happened, and honestly, this is a loss that could have been avoided. But Georgia was just long overdue for an SEC win against a ranked team, and they got it. And Georgia has been competitive against teams such as Florida and Kentucky, so they were bound to get a win over a ranked SEC team, so there's that right there. Jumping over to Friday's matchups, we had Florida State taking down number 6 Pitt in 5 sets. The first 2 sets were pretty much all Florida State, 25-18, 25-21. Pitt narrowly won the third set 25-23, and then they won the fourth set 25-18. No surprise that they forced a 5th set, as Florida State actually led. Pitt led, and then Florida State came back and eventually led 14-11 after I think it was a successful challenge that went the way of Florida State, which put Florida State at match point. But Pitt was able to rattle off 3 straight points to tie it up at 14-14. But Florida State won the last 2 points, and they picked up their first ranked win of the season. So my takeaway for Florida State is this. They finally got their first biggest win of the season. It took a while, and after whiffing against Georgia Tech, which I think they could have won that one, honestly, they definitely earned this one. And Florida State was led by Audrey Koenig, who had 14 kills, while Corey Lewis had 12 kills. Kylene Filimawa had 16 digs, while Koenig had 10 digs. Florida State, this was probably the biggest glaring stat for the Seminoles. They had 13 aces to Pittsburgh's 3 aces. Both teams missed 12 serves, but Florida State just dominated the serving battle. And that's huge right there, because that was probably one of their bigger statistics that they dominated. The blocking also was great for Florida State, as they had, let me see if I'm doing my math correctly, they had 19 blocks as a team compared to Pitt's 10 blocks as a team. And while they did get outdug 69-56, they held Pitt to a 190 hitting percentage, even though their hitting percentage was at 184. For Pitt, they were led by Olivia Babcock, who had 19 kills, while Tori Stafford had 17 kills, and Valeria Vasquez Gomez added 14 kills, to go along with 12 digs. Rachel Fairbanks had a double-double with 39 assists to go along with 11 digs, while Alexis Akio also chipped in 14 assists as well. My takeaway for Pitt is this. In a conference that is extremely tight, this was probably the one matchup they could not have afforded to lose. I know they were on the road in Tully Gymnasium, but I will Tully Gymnasium, but I will also say this about Pitt. This is a loss that could have been totally avoided, especially when they almost came back in that 5th set. But sadly, that was not the case, and this just goes to show that the ACC is full of twists and turns. And on that note, that's a perfect segue to go into the next upset. We had number 10 Georgia Tech taking down number 3 Louisville in 4 sets at the O'Keefe Gymnasium, 26-24, 25-22, 17-25, and 25-19. My takeaway for Georgia Tech is this. The first set was what really swung the momentum to them. They were down 24-20, and I have to give a lot of credit to Bianca Bertolino. She served throughout the remainder of the set after Pitt and Georgia Tech got the point, and she was just bombing serves in a good way. She has a jump serve, and she just really brought her team back. And I even said she has ice in her veins. And it was definitely incredible. And while Georgia Tech didn't really have the true big double-digit kill numbers from their players, they had balanced numbers, as Tamara Oteen had 11 kills, while Deandra Pierce and Afeto Manyang each had 9 kills. Bertolino had 7 kills, while Anna Bosey had 7 kills. Bertolino had 7 service aces, which I imagine is like a Georgia Tech record, and 7 service aces to only 3 service errors. That is a pretty good serving ace to service error ratio. Georgia Tech outblocked Louisville 11.5-9, and they barely outdug them 53-51. As someone who has kind of been a little critical on Georgia Tech, I'm glad Georgia Tech has kind of got their big-time win. And remember how they lost that 5-setter to Pitt when they were up 2-0? Well, this kind of makes up for it, as this was a big win, and unfortunately this win does come 2 years too late, because they could have used this win back in the NCAA tournament. But a win is a win regardless, and winning in O'Keefe Gymnasium was the icing on the cake. For Louisville, they were led by Charity Looper, who had 15 kills, while PK Kong had 13 kills. My takeaway for Louisville is this. Hitting 186 is not ideal, but when you're facing a team that has 11.5 blocks is kind of what's going to do you in. Louisville had 7 service aces to only 8 service errors, while Georgia Tech had 8 service aces, 7 of them from Bertolino, to only 11 service errors. But for Louisville, this was definitely a loss that could have been avoided. That first set was what really cost them. And you cannot afford to give up 6 straight points en route to losing that first set. Because if they take that first set, they definitely have Georgia Tech on their heels. But that's because Bianca Bertolino had herself a great serving run. And I will just say she has ice in her veins. There's nothing more that needs to be said. Also, I just got to say, hitting 65 in that fourth set really does not help Louisville's chances of winning. I'll give them credit. They held Georgia Tech to a negative 37 hitting percentage, but Georgia Tech hitting 324 was what really booned them back to a win. Jumping on over to Happy Valley, we had number 1 Nebraska rallying back from an 0-2 deficit and taking down Penn State in Rec Hall 15-25, 23-25, 25-18, 25-20, and 15-13. So my biggest takeaway for Nebraska is this. Big teams make big plays at big times, and for Nebraska, they made those big plays and big times in big moments. And even when Penn State had one of their biggest crowds in over 20 years, with 6,645 in attendance, Nebraska was able to bring it and avoid losing their first match of the season. I had a feeling Nebraska was going to come back. It's been a while since Nebraska's lost to Penn State. They have won 7 straight matches. This is their 7th straight win over the Nittany Lions, as Merritt Beeson had a whopping 27 kills, as that's actually the most from that's the most kills from a Nebraska player since Michaela Foecke had 27 kills back in 2018. So that was quite incredible on her end. Harper Murray also had a great night with 15 kills. She hit 379. I also got to mention that Beeson hit 426, which is simply insane. Becca Alec had 11 kills to go along with a 381 hitting percentage, as Nebraska hit 288. They weren't even hitting that bad in set number 1. They actually hit 310 in the first set. It's just that Penn State hit 552 and had 0 hitting errors. And then in the second set, Penn State also hit 394, but as the match progressed, Nebraska got their you-know-what together, and they eventually found their bearings, and Lexi Rodriguez, while she didn't really put up the biggest dig numbers, she had 13 digs, which was one below the other dig leader, Harper Murray, who had 14 digs, and Bergen Riley had 13 digs to go along with her 52 assists. For Penn State, Jess Marusic led the way with 21 kills with a 296 hitting percentage, while Gillian Grimes had 17 digs. Cameron Hanna had 10 kills. My takeaway for Penn State is this. This is another one of those frustrating losses where they definitely could have won, but unfortunately didn't. But this is Nebraska we're talking about. This is kind of little sister, kind of giving the noogie to little sister. And sadly for Penn State, they just could not win in front of a mega packed crowd. Probably their biggest crowd in 20 years from what I read. But sadly for Penn State, they just could not pull out the win, and they are still long overdue for a win over Nebraska. But that just shows how good Nebraska is as a team. The Huskers are a legit team. There's a reason why they're still number 1 in the nation, and there's a reason why they knocked off Wisconsin, which was the former number 1, and there's a reason why they're undefeated, and they're the only undefeated team remaining in NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I. Jumping over to the Pac-12 and to Northern California, we had Stanford taking down Washington State in 4 sets. This matchup is the prime example of let's not overreact after a first set, as Washington State took the first set 25-21, and everyone was kind of going crazy saying, oh, Washington State took the first set, they hit 464, they only had 2 hitting errors. Well, you have to win 3 sets to win a match. Washington State, no offense to them, they won that first set. But then Stanford got it together. They took the second set, 25-21. They hit 375 in that second set. Third set, Stanford won 25-20. They hit 308 while holding Washington State to 125. And then the fourth set, while it didn't have the flashy, big-time numbers, Stanford wound up winning that fourth set 25-23 while holding Washington State to a hitting percentage of only 54. And that might have been the difference between having to win it in 4 and then having to go 5 at home against Washington State. And I will also say this, I have to give a shout out to Stanford because they had 3,061 in attendance. Now, it certainly is no 6,645 compared to Rec Hall, but it's a start. Even though this was your number 5 Stanford Cardinal taking on the number 9 Washington State Cougars. And I expected a little bit more, but I digress. But Stanford, having 4 players in double digits in terms of kills, was what really propelled them, as Elia Rubin had 18 kills, Kendall Kipp had 16 kills, Katie Baird had 13 kills, and Sammy Francis had 12 kills, while the team itself hit 287, and they outdug Washington State 50-44, which is pretty good. They barely got outblocked 12-11.5. So I give Stanford credit for barely getting outblocked. And I know they won the service ace battle, but looking at the service ace to service error ratio, I think Washington State won that one, but Stanford is a tough serving team. If they serve tough and you're not ready for it, you're going to get aced. I know Stanford missed 13 serves, but that's because they have tough servers like Elia Rubin, Katie Baird, Kendall Kipp. The list goes on and on. For Washington State, Iman Isanovic had 18 kills, while Pia Timmer had 12 kills. My takeaway from Washington State is this. I hate to say this, but I feel Washington State is kind of crashed back down to earth after an impressive start. And I feel Stanford might be the kryptonite. And I hate to really say that just because I like Washington State. I really think they still have that mentality that they could, hence the word could, possibly make it into maybe the Elite Eight. But I don't know if they're a Final Four team, just because Texas is starting to rise again. Can they beat the likes of Nebraska and Wisconsin? Louisville can still be up there, even though they just lost to Georgia Tech. The list goes on and on. And then jumping on down south to the SEC, we had another barn burner matchup. We had number 11 Tennessee taking down number 19 Florida in Gainesville at the Exotech Arena. 23-25, 25-14, 20-25, 25-23, and 15-13. My takeaway for Tennessee is this. It's a win, and winning on the road is never easy, as I'm about to elaborate on that momentarily. But Tennessee was led by Janasia Moore, who had 23 kills, as she also hit 388. It's actually a career high for them. She also had 6 kills in set number 5, which was huge. Remember when I said big-time players make big-time plays, and big-time teams make big-time moments in big-time matches? Well, that's kind of what happened with Tennessee. Morgan Fingal had 17 kills, while Erica Lovett had 12 kills. As a team, Tennessee hit 256. Even though they were out-hit 264 to 256, they outdug the opposing team 71 to 67, and they outblocked the opponent 12 to 7, and they didn't miss too many serves. Now, I don't know if they weren't serving tough, but I will just say Florida serves really tough. They have a few jump servers on their team, such as Kennedy Muff, who unfortunately had 2 kills. I'm sorry, not Kennedy Muff. Kennedy Martin. I'm getting the Kennedys confused. Kennedy Martin is the one that serves tough. She had a whopping 28 kills, and she hit 273 despite having 10 hitting errors. She also had 10 digs as well. Ellie McKissock had 24 digs, which led the team in that department. Sophia Victoria added 14 kills, while Nettie Okamore had 12 kills. My takeaway for Florida is this. This is really where you wish you had Alexis Stuckey, Kira Hudson, and Anna Dixon, because if you have your full team, you're winning this matchup. But sadly, that is not the case, and sadly, this is another tough loss for Florida, which has Gator fans really wishing and wondering why the volleyball gods are punishing them for all of their sins. But for Tennessee, this is actually their first win in Gainesville since 2012. So that's a feather in their cap right there, and it keeps them in contention for the SEC crown, because remember, there's no SEC tournament, at least not for this year, but they're still going to have to play their cards right, and they're probably going to need to get some help along the way when Kentucky plays some of the other big dog opponents. Also, Janasia Moore had 16 digs to go along with those 23 kills, which is actually a personal best for her. Jumping on over to the Big 12, we had number 14 Kansas defeating Kansas State in 5 sets as Kansas nearly got reverse swept. This actually took place at the University of Kansas, a.k.a. the, I'm going to mispronounce this one, the Horesi Family Volleyball Arena in Lawrence, Kansas. It took place in Lawrence, Kansas. That's all you need to know. As Kansas took the first two sets, 25-16 and 25-23. Kansas State, being the scrappy team that they are, they won the next two sets, 25-20 and 25-19. And then Kansas won the fifth set, 15-12. Kansas was led by London Davis, who had 18 kills, and she had 556, while Aya El-Nadi had 18 kills. For Kansas, my takeaway for them is this. A win is a win. While it wasn't the prettiest win, it was still a win. And yeah, you all have to remember, this is kind of a rivalry match between Kansas State and Kansas. Anything can happen when it comes to these two. And with how Kansas State has been upsetting teams and how they beat BYU, it's any wonder why I gave them a little bit of a fighting chance. While I did make note of this last week, I still think Kansas State is a solid Big 12 team. Kansas, the big thing for them is that they outblocked their opponent 15-8. That is probably gonna aid you in helping to defeat a team like this. But I will give credit to Kansas State. They outdug their opponent 94-77, as Kansas State was led by Aaliyah Carter, who had 24 kills to go along with 14 digs. Anaya Clinton had 16 kills, while Sydney Bolding had 15 kills, no hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .625. Mackenzie Morris had a whopping 34 digs, as they had four different players with double-digit digs. Carter and Izzy Solzewski had 14 digs. Sorry if I mispronounced that name, possibly. And then Simone Sims added 11 digs. My takeaway for Kansas State is this. Obviously, it's tough losing to losing to your older sister or your rival, but I will just say it's still a great effort, and they're still having a solid year. I wouldn't be surprised if the Big 12 had multiple teams making the NCAA tournament. But this is probably one of those matches where you're probably wishing you had back. But it doesn't take away that Kansas State is still having a fantastic year, as they still have wins over BYU and Baylor and Iowa State, to say the least. So I think Kansas State can make the tournament, but this week is going to be such a brutal week, having to take on the University of Texas. And then jumping on over and closing out Friday's matches, we jump on over to the Big Island in Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, as Cal Poly took down Hawaii in a 5-set Big West barn burner, 10-25, 25-22, 15-25, 25-14, and 15-12. For Cal Poly, my takeaway is this. This is probably their biggest win of the season, and I have to give them credit. I didn't think they had the greatest chance of all. And while most of us were asleep, this was probably a big matchup for Cal Poly. This was probably the matchup to watch for in terms if you're a Cal Poly fan, even if you had to stay up late and drink multiple cups of coffee. But for Cal Poly, I will just say, while they haven't really had success against the top dogs in the Big West, this is probably the win that they needed to spurt them in terms of beating some of the other teams in the Big West Conference that are ranked higher than them. Like maybe they can't beat Santa Barbara, but if they get to play Santa Barbara again in the Big West Conference tournament, they have this win to say, hey, we can hang with y'all. It's just that you just caught us off our guard, and we just could not put it together. And then the thing about Cal Poly is they still have a chance to get a first-round bye. They just have to play their cards right. And it starts this week when they play, I think they play UC San Diego, and then Saturday I know they play Long Beach State. And I'm willing to bet all the money that I have that Daniel Gilman is going to be on the call. I'm not going to really bet all the money that I have. I'm not a betting man, and I don't promote betting. Bet responsibly. Anyway, Tommy Stockham led the way with 17 kills, while Lizzie Markovska had 12 kills. Jole Akima had 23 digs, while Emmy Bullis had 9 digs to go along with her 35 assists. Cal Poly didn't really hit the best, as they hit a whopping 159, and they got outdug 62-57. But I will say their blocking was pretty good. They had 9 blocks They had 9 blocks to Hawaii's 9 blocks, and they had 10 service aces to Hawaii's 7 service aces, even though they barely won the service ace versus service error category. For Hawaii, my takeaway for them is this. This is a very frustrating loss for them, especially losing at home. And I know that they can beat this team. They were able to prove it in the first meeting at Mott Gymnasium as Kaylin Alexander led the way with 18 kills, while Amber Igidi had 11 kills. My biggest concern for Hawaii is Riley Wagner, as she only had 6 kills while hitting negative 48. Now, there is the possibility that maybe she's hurt. Again, this was a late matchup, and unfortunately I didn't drink my caffeine, which is a bummer, but I digress. They did out-hit Cal Poly, but it was kind of an ugly out-hit, as they hit 200 to Cal Poly's 159. So all in all for Hawaii, this is one of those losses where you wish you could have back. And jumping over to Saturday's matchups, this is the only one I got to recap, and for Hawaii fans, you're probably going to puke when you hear this one. UC Santa Barbara defeating Hawaii at the Simplify Arena at Stan Sheriff Center in straight sets, 25-17, 29-27, and 28-26. Now, this was another one of those late matchups where us West Coasters and East Coasters probably could not stay awake for, unless you had like 10 cups of coffee. But for UC Santa Barbara, my biggest concern for them going into this matchup was, could they beat Hawaii at Hawaii? And they did so. And the fact that they also beat Cal Poly at Cal Poly is also incredible. I said that this was going to be the biggest week of the regular season for UC Santa Barbara, and they came up big. And the best part is that they have a lot of momentum going into their next matchup, which is against Long Beach State. And I imagine if they win that matchup, they pretty much have the number 1 seed in the Big West Conference Tournament locked up. And the only negative thing about UC Santa Barbara's big season is that this is the year where you wish you didn't have the Big West Conference Tournament, because if there was no Big West Conference Tournament, Santa Barbara would be thinking about plans of eventually going dancing. As the Gauchos were led by Brianna McKnight, who had 14 kills, Michelle Owobite had 9 kills, Tasia Farmer had 8 kills, McCall Pete had 21 digs in a 3-set match, mind you, though 2 of the 3 sets were extended, and McKnight had 10 digs. While Santa Barbara didn't really hit the highest, they hit 202, which I'll say it's much better than Cal Poly's hitting percentage following their matchup on Friday. For Hawaii, they were led by Kennedy Evans, who had 10 kills, while Amber Igidi had 9 kills. Riley Wagner only played 2 sets as she had 3 kills. Paula Gershing had 8 kills as Hawaii only hit 139. They did outdig Santa Barbara 66-62, but they were outblocked in a big way, 9 to 3.5. And they missed 11 serves and only had 2 service aces. So my takeaway for Hawaii is this. This is very concerning on their end. I'm just going to also... Now, I don't know what the status is of Riley Wagner, but I will also just say that if she's struggling, then everyone else has got to step up. Whether you're Paula Gershing, Kaylin Alexander, Amber Igidi, you got to pick up the slack for her. And I know Hawaii is doing the best that they can, but honestly, one of your top players just cannot have that type of night. And if she is injured, then maybe they got to rest her and make sure she doesn't make that injury worse, because this week they have to travel to Cal State Fullerton and UC Irvine, but you don't want to risk losing her and making that injury worse, because the following week they've got UC San Diego and Long Beach State. The Long Beach State matchup is going to be huge, because that could determine if they're playing in the first round or if they're playing in the semifinals. I will just say for Hawaii, they have to lock up the 2 seed for purposes of they need more rest, because they have to go from Hawaii over to California, and while they have proven that they can win in California, the jet lag and being away from their families and being away from where they live is kind of tough, especially on a Thanksgiving week, because I highly doubt Hawaii is going to go from Wednesday to California. They're going to fly out to California, then play on Wednesday, then fly back on Thursday, then fly back on Friday. I think they're just going to stay in California for the entire week of the Big West Conference Tournament. But another notable stat for Hawaii is that this is the first time since 2015 that they've lost consecutive Big West Conference matches. And in 2015, they lost to Cal State Northridge and Long Beach State. So if you're Hawaii, you're kind of a little concerned about those results. Now, granted, Cal Poly is a good team, and they really showed their true potential, and they do have some momentum going into this week. And Santa Barbara is looking like the class of the Big West Conference. But for them to lose twice at home is kind of unheard of. If they had lost on the road twice in a row, I'd maybe understand it a little. But losing twice at home, it kind of raises a red flag that this team either needs to step up or they need to get healthy ASAP. I wouldn't write them off as they're done and they're going to lose the rest of the way, but you kind of have to wonder with the Rainbow Wahine. And then jumping over to Sunday's matches, we have USC sweeping Arizona State and defending the Galen Center 25-23, 25-23, and 25-16. My takeaway for USC is this. They're kind of an interesting team. They are so good at home, but when they play on the road, they're at best. Not trying to say that USC is terrible, but they just don't have the dogs on the road. But when they play at home, they look like they're the most invincible team out there. As the Trojans were led by Skylar Fields, who had 24 kills, and if I recall correctly, I think I saw something about Skylar Fields having over 2,000 kills. And yes, she does have over 2,000 career kills, which is absolutely amazing, as she has currently at USC 1,091 and she had 926 at Texas. So that's quite incredible right there when it comes to Skylar Fields. And she's had a great volleyball career, and she's going to do great things. It's funny how she had 24 kills, as she had over half of USC's kills, as USC as a team had 45. The next kill leaders were Tyra Ariel, and Kyla Williams, who each had 6 kills. And USC hit a whopping 358. The thing about USC is they'll go as far as Skylar Fields can take them. Skylar Fields, however, does need a Robin when it comes to her being Batman. Arizona State was led by Marta Levinska, who had 21 kills, which is pretty darn good. She kind of tried to be Superwoman for Arizona State, but it was to no avail. Roberta Rebello and Jelly Jelly Sir each had 6 kills. If I'm mispronouncing these names, I definitely apologize, like I've been mentioning. I'm not the greatest with names, but I digress. Mary Schroll had 19 digs, and the dig leader for USC was Mia Tuaniga, who had 11 digs to go along with 32 assists. My takeaway for Arizona State is this. They are the weirdest team in the Pac-12. One week they have an amazing win over a team like Oregon and not Washington State, Oregon or Stanford, and then the next week they're losing to USC or they're losing to Oregon State or anything of that sort. So Arizona State's got to find their consistency. I think they'll still make the NCAA tournament, but they're certainly not winning no Pac-12 championship, that's for sure. I still think the Pac-12 pretty much goes through Stanford and maybe Oregon. But if I were a bet man, I'd put my money on Stanford. And then the last matchup to fully dive into is number 19 Purdue taking down number 16 Penn State in 5 sets. My takeaway for Purdue is this. They won the match 25-17, 25-15, 21-25, 20-25, and 15-12. Purdue was led by Chloe Chicoine, who had 27 kills, while Eva Hudson had 24 kills, and Lourdes Myers had 9 kills, but she hit a whopping 818, which is one of the highest hitting percentages in NCAA women's volleyball history, if I'm not mistaken. My takeaway for Purdue is this. They they had a tough loss against Wisconsin earlier in the week, which is totally understandable, but they finally got their consistency together. This is kind of the whole Purdue is a seesaw team. One week they look like they're not belonging in the top 25, and then this week, the next week they look like they belong in the top 25. And this week they definitely belong in the top 25, as beating Penn State and sweeping the season series against Penn State is pretty darn impressive. For Penn State, they were led by Jess Mruzek, who had 27 kills, while Zoe Wetherington and Cameron Hanna each had 11 kills. Penn State hit 200, which is unacceptable compared to Purdue's 286. Purdue had 75 digs compared to Penn State's 71. The block category belonged to both teams, as they both had 12 blocks as a team. And then Penn State won the service error battle 7-7 to 2-7. My takeaway for Penn State is this. This was probably the most frustrating week to be a Penn State fan, losing 2 5-set matches, 1 via a reverse sweep, and 2 being a failed reverse sweep. But for Penn State, I would say they're not a good team, but they're kind of a meh team, if you ask me. I don't know if they can go past the Sweet 16. I definitely think they do have a lot of potential, but I just don't see them as a team going ultimately farther than the Sweet 16. I don't even know if they'll be able to host, because 2 losses to Purdue, you kind of have to wonder if the committee is going to put them in back of Purdue no matter what happens. And that's that for the full breakdowns of the matches from Week 11. We also had Creighton sweeping number 17 Creighton sweeping number 25 Marquette in straight sets. I don't really need to go over that matchup. I just got to say, Norris is back, and that is bad news for Marquette and the entire Big East Conference, and any other team that opposes Creighton. Also, we had Kentucky taking down Florida at the Exatech Arena in 4 sets. At number 13, Kentucky has won 10 in a row, and winning at Gainesville is no easy feat. And my takeaway for Florida is this. This is one of those frustrating weeks where, again, you wish you had your full team. You wish you had Kira Hudson. You wish you had Alexis Stuckey. You wish you had Anna Dixon. But unfortunately, that's just the harsh reality of it. And it just sucks, because I really think Florida does have the potential when at full strength. But those 3 players that I just mentioned, Hudson, Stuckey, and Dixon, they're all done for the season. So they're just going to have to play with the current team that they have. And it sucks, because who knows what could happen with Florida. Maybe they are contending for the SEC crown. Maybe they are contending to host a regional game or regionals. Heck, maybe they're still in the top 10 or top 5. But for Florida, it's just the way it is sometimes. And my takeaway for Kentucky is this. They have found their swagger, and the SEC Freshman of the Year is going to come down to Kennedy Martin and Brooklyn DeLay. I've been pronouncing it DeLay, but it's actually DeLay. And Brooklyn DeLay has been an outstanding addition. She's only a freshman, but you also got to look at Kennedy Martin, who has just been freaking phenomenal for Florida as well. So the selection committee, in terms of the SEC, has got a tough job on their hands in terms of attempting to pick the SEC Freshman of the Year, but I digress. All right, but that's going to do it for the NCAA Women's Volleyball Week 11 recap. Let's take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we will have the NCAA Women's Volleyball Week 12 preview, and we've got the Pro Volleyball Federation scheduled to break down. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No. Not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, as we have a lot of them, such as Chi-Town Weekly, which will be going on later on the day at 7 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. But on that note, let us get back on into the volleyball action. So, as of this recording, there's about 12 minutes until the AVCA releases their Division I Women's Volleyball Coaches Polls. So I'll be going over that live, but as of right now, through these 12 minutes, I have to go over the Pro Volleyball Federation 2024 schedule. So the Pro Volleyball Federation will be starting in 2024, which is next year. And that's something I'm definitely looking forward to, and I really want to attend some of these matches. The only problem is that the nearest one is going to be in San Diego, which San Diego and Las Vegas don't have team names. You better fix that. Anyway, for the Pro Volleyball Federation, week 1, they'll have Atlanta taking on Omaha, which will be the first match of the season. That'll be at an 8 p.m. Eastern start time. It'll be on Wednesday, January 24th, so mark your calendars for the first ever match of the Pro Volleyball Federation. Then on Thursday, we'll have Columbus at Grand Rapids, which will be a 7 p.m. Eastern start time, which is the day after Atlanta plays Omaha. Then Friday, we have a down-south battle as Atlanta takes on Orlando at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Then in week 2, we have San Diego with a pair of matches as San Diego takes on Atlanta at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, February 1st. And then Saturday, February 3rd, San Diego is at Omaha. Then in week 3, we have Las Vegas hitting the road to Omaha on Wednesday, February 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Then on Friday, February 9th, Grand Rapids hits the road to the ATL to take on Atlanta at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Then Saturday, February 10th, Las Vegas is in the Sunshine State via Orlando, Florida for that matchup at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Then week 4, we have a big slate as we have a doubleheader on Monday. We have Omaha at Grand Rapids and Orlando at Atlanta. Both of them are 7 p.m. Eastern start time matches. Then Thursday, February 15th, we have Omaha at Las Vegas, a 10 p.m. Eastern start time, which is 7 p.m. Pacific time. Then on Friday, February 16th, we have Columbus at Orlando, which is another 7 p.m. Eastern start time matchup. Then on Sunday, February 18th, we have Atlanta at Grand Rapids, which is a 4 p.m. Eastern start time. And there's actually a second match going on earlier in the day as Orlando takes on Omaha at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Then in week 5, we kind of have a little bit of a West Coast showdown as San Diego hits the road to Las Vegas to take on Las Vegas, or to the Sin City, as they play at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Then Wednesday, that's Monday, February 19th. Then Wednesday, February 21st, Omaha is at Columbus at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Thursday, February 22nd, Orlando is at Las Vegas at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Friday, February 23rd, Grand Rapids is at San Diego, as San Diego will finally get to host their first home game, which has yet to be decided. They don't know where they're having their home games, which I imagine is either going to be at Torero Stadium or Lion Tree Arena at UC San Diego. Or, I'm sorry, not Torero Stadium, Jenny Craig Pavilion at the University of San Diego. But I digress. Then Saturday, February 24th, Columbus is at Las Vegas. And then Sunday, February 25th, Omaha is at Orlando. Then week 6, we have Las Vegas at Columbus on Monday, February 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. By the way, Omaha at Orlando is a 3 p.m. Eastern start time. Columbus at Las Vegas is a 10 p.m. Eastern start time. And then Grand Rapids at San Diego is a 10 p.m. Eastern start time, which is 7 p.m. Pacific time. Then Thursday, February 29th, we have Las Vegas at San Diego, which is a 10 p.m. Eastern start time. And also earlier in the day, we have Omaha at Orlando at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Then Friday, March 1st, Grand Rapids is at Orlando at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Saturday, March 2nd, Atlanta is at San Diego for a 7 p.m. Pacific time matchup, aka 10 p.m. Eastern start time. And then Sunday, March 3rd, Columbus is at Ohio for a 3 p.m. Eastern start time matchup, which is noon Pacific time. And then week 7, we have a doubleheader. We have Atlanta at Las Vegas at 10 p.m. Eastern time, and Grand Rapids at San Diego, which is also at 10 p.m. Eastern start time, because West Coast time is basically 7 p.m. Then on Saturday, March 9th, we have Columbus at Grand Rapids, as well as Las Vegas at Atlanta. That first matchup, Columbus at Grand Rapids, which that's going to be a noon Eastern start time, which is 9 a.m. on the West Coast. And then Las Vegas at Atlanta, that is going to be a 4 p.m. Pacific time start time, which is a 7 p.m. Eastern start time for us. And then it's actually a triple header, as Omaha is at Orlando, as that's going to also be a 7 p.m. Eastern time start time for that. So it's a triple header on that Saturday, March 9th. Then I forgot to mention this is a 16-week event, and then the championship event is on Thursday, May 16th, all the way through Sunday, May 19th. Anyway, now where was I? I was on week number 7, because we had that triple header. Week 8, we have Las Vegas at Columbus on Monday, March 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we also have on that same day Orlando at San Diego, which is at 10 p.m. Eastern start time, which is 7 p.m. Pacific time. Then Thursday, March 14th, Atlanta is at Omaha, 8 p.m. Eastern start time. Saturday, March 16th, Orlando is at Omaha, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Then Sunday, March 17th, Las Vegas is at Grand Rapids for a 4 p.m. Eastern start time. Week 9, we have Wednesday, March 20th, we have Grand Rapids at Columbus at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thursday, March 21st, Orlando at Atlanta, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Sunday, March 24th, Atlanta at Columbus, 2 p.m. Eastern start time. And then Sunday, March 24th, which is a doubleheader for that day, San Diego at Las Vegas, which is a 7 p.m. Eastern start time, which is 4 p.m. on the West Coast. Week 10. Tuesday, March 26th, we have Grand Rapids at Las Vegas, 10 p.m. Eastern start time. Wednesday, March 27th, Columbus at Atlanta, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Thursday, March 28th, Grand Rapids at Omaha, 8 p.m. Eastern start time. Friday, March 29th, Orlando at Columbus, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Saturday, March 30th is a doubleheader, Las Vegas at Omaha and San Diego at Atlanta, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Week 11, Monday, April 1st, no April Fools here, as Atlanta at Grand Rapids play at 7 p.m. Eastern start time. And then Tuesday, Omaha at San Diego, 10 p.m. Eastern start time. Thursday, Columbus at Omaha, 8 p.m. Eastern start time. Saturday, April 6th, Orlando at Grand Rapids, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. And then Sunday, April 7th, Columbus at San Diego, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Week 12, Monday, April 8th, Atlanta at Las Vegas, 10 p.m. Eastern start time. Then Wednesday, April 10th, Atlanta at San Diego. Nice little West Coast road trip right there. 10 p.m. Eastern start time. Thursday, April 11th, Grand Rapids at Orlando, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Friday, April 12th, San Diego at Columbus, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Saturday, April 13th is a doubleheader, Las Vegas at Grand Rapids and Omaha at Atlanta. Both are 7 p.m. Eastern start times. And then Sunday, April 14th, San Diego at Orlando, 3 p.m. Eastern start time. Week 13, we have on Tuesday, April 16th, Grand Rapids at Orlando, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Wednesday, April 17th, Columbus at Las Vegas, 10 p.m. Eastern start time. Thursday, April 18th, Orlando at Grand Rapids, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Friday, April 19th, Atlanta at Columbus, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Doubleheader on Saturday. We have Grand Rapids at Las Vegas and San Diego at Omaha. Grand Rapids at Las Vegas is 10 p.m. Eastern start time, and San Diego at Omaha is 7 p.m. Eastern start time. And then Sunday, April 21st, Atlanta at Orlando, 3 p.m. Eastern start time. And I'm just going to skim through the last 2 weeks just because it's almost noon as of this recording. Tuesday, April 23rd, Omaha at San Diego, 10 p.m. Eastern. Friday, April 26th, is a triple header. Grand Rapids at Omaha, 8 p.m. Eastern. Las Vegas at San Diego, 10 p.m. Eastern. Orlando at Columbus, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sunday is a doubleheader. Grand Rapids at Columbus and Las Vegas and Atlanta, 2 p.m. Eastern are both of those times. Week 15, Monday, April 29th, Orlando at San Diego, 10 p.m. East start time. Wednesday, May 1st, Orlando at Las Vegas, 10 p.m. East start time. Thursday, May 2nd, Columbus at Atlanta, 7 p.m. East start time. Saturday, May 4th, Omaha at Columbus, 7 p.m. East start time, along with San Diego at Grand Rapids, which is another 7 p.m. East start time on Saturday, May 4th. And then Saturday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, San Diego at Grand Rapids, 4 p.m. Eastern. Then the final week, Week 16, Monday, May 6th, Omaha at Las Vegas, 10 p.m. East start time. Tuesday, May 7th, Columbus at San Diego, 10 p.m. East start time. Thursday, May 9th, we have a doubleheader. Columbus at Omaha at 8 p.m. East start time. And then San Diego at Omaha, 7 p.m. East start time. Then Saturday is another doubleheader. Las Vegas at Orlando, 7 p.m. East start time. And then San Diego at Columbus, 7 p.m. East start time. Then Sunday, May 12th, is the final game of the regular season of the Pro Volleyball Federation, as Omaha is at Grand Rapids at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And that's that. As, like I said, championship event weekend is from Thursday, May 16th, all the way through Sunday, May 19th, at a location to be determined. All right, that is that for the Pro Volleyball Federation schedule. I know I kind of was Mother Goose right there, but that's the entire schedule. As Patty Bax is in the chat room, I forgot to mention, thank you for tuning in, as well as Larry B. And Patty Bax says, great show from what I could catch. Thank you, and thank you for being here, Larry B. All right, we only have one more minute until the AVCA drops their coaches poll for this week, as they have not quite dropped their coaches poll just yet. You thought I was going to give it out to y'all, didn't you? But it's 1 minute till the coaches poll gets released. So I might as well come up with some clever nicknames when it comes to, or some clever team names for Las Vegas and San Diego, just because they don't have team names for the Pro Volleyball Federation, which is kind of saddening. So for San Diego, I've got the San Diego Scorpions, the San Diego Sharks, the San Diego Sidewinders, the San Diego Diamondbacks, and the San Diego Stonefish. And for Las Vegas, I don't have too many names. I only have 3. The Las Vegas Royals, the Las Vegas Rattlers, and the Las Vegas Roadrunners. So if you all like those names, awesome. If you all have any other team name suggestions for Las Vegas or San Diego, please drop it in the comment section, whether it's post this show or in the live chat room. But I digress. All right, it is 12 o'clock noon, and here is the AVCA Top 25. 25 through 21 consists of USC at 25, Auburn at 24, Western Kentucky at 23, Houston at 22, and Florida at 21. 20 through 16 consists of Baylor at 20, Penn State at 19, Dayton at 18, Arizona State at 17, and Purdue at 16. 15 through 11 consists of Creighton at 15, Kansas at 14, Kentucky at 13, BYU at 12, and Arkansas at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Tennessee at 10, Washington State at 9, Georgia Tech at 8, and Pitt at 7, along with Oregon at 6. 5 through 1 consists of Louisville at 5, Stanford at 4, Texas at 3, Wisconsin at 2, and your still number 1 team in the AVCA Division I Women's Volleyball Coaches Poll is Nebraska, which is no surprise because they're the only remaining undefeated team that remains. But USC has entered the top 25, as Auburn is just hanging on for dear life in terms of that top 25. And good for USC for jumping into the top 25, as Marquette is out of there. They lost in straight sets to Creighton, which is kind of not surprising, especially with Nora Sis back. They do have some other injuries, but Creighton with Nora Sis back is scary good. But USC is undefeated at home, and they just I wouldn't say demolished Arizona State, but they showed them whose house it was. And that's pretty much that in terms of the AVCA Division I Coaches Poll. All right, so now let's get on into the matches to watch for in Week 12, and I will send you all on your way. It doesn't look like there's too many big-time matches. Now, this was before the AVCA Coaches Poll was released, keep in mind. So, I may miss a few matches here and there, and I do apologize. I'm sorry if I do. But we'll start off on Wednesday. We have number 13 Kentucky hitting the road to Alabama to take on number 24 Auburn. All right, here's the deal with Kentucky. They have won 10 in a row, but Auburn, they're still in contention for the SEC crown, but they are slipping further and further back. They're not really amongst the top 3, as they are 3 games back of the division lead against Kentucky. And then meanwhile, Kentucky, they're still trying to build up their lead just because Arkansas is right on their coattail, but they still have the head-to-head over that team. And I really think that Kentucky win over Arkansas is going to go a long way. And if if Kentucky plays their cards right, I think they're still going to win that SEC crown like they were supposed to. Because here's the thing about Kentucky. Everyone expects them to just crumble after a tough preseason. Everyone writes off Kentucky saying, oh, Kentucky has this record. They're just not good. They're going to get swallowed up in the SEC. Well, Kentucky plays a lot of good teams in the preseason. So if you're discrediting Kentucky just because they play tough opponents, you got to reevaluate yourself. Kentucky has won 10 in a row now, and they are now at full strength. With Reagan Rutherford back, they now look like the team that they're supposed to be. And then Thursday, we have probably the match of the week right here, as we have Oregon, number 6 Oregon, hit the road to Northern California to take on number 4 Stanford. All right, looking at the Pac-12 standings, this is probably Oregon's last chance to probably catch Stanford in the standings. Stanford is 13-1 in the Pac-12, which is eventually going to go bye-bye, while Oregon is 11-3. If Oregon wins, they still have a shot at winning the Pac-12 championship. If Stanford wins, then Stanford pretty much controls their own destiny going forward, and they'll have the head-to-head over the Ducks. My thing for Stanford is this. As long as they play their game and they don't beat themselves, they're in good shape in terms of winning this matchup. I'd be semi-shocked if Stanford lost this one. I think Stanford, I know they had that loss to Arizona State, but so did Oregon. So I think for Stanford, they've shaken off that loss. They did beat Washington State and Washington on the road, which is pretty good. So, well, I'm sorry, it was at home. I'm sorry. So it's another one of these Northwest Territory matchups. So all in all for Stanford, they just have to play their own game. If they play their own game and they don't foul up, I think they're in good shape. I would be shocked if they lost this one at home. The only way they lose this is if they have less than 1,000 fans and all their fans are Oregon fans. And it's a Thursday game, I know, but still, I think this is the match that Stanford has to win. This is the biggest match of the season in terms of the regular season, of course, because Stanford, once they get past Oregon, they're kind of in the clear because they only have one ranked opponent left, and that's USC, which is teetering toward being ranked and unranked. And then jumping over to Friday, we have number 7 Pitt at number 8 Georgia Tech. All right, round 2 between these two teams. The first meeting saw Pitt winning at Pitt in 5 sets, which they were down 0-2, and then they wound up reverse sweeping them, which is good. Now, here's my thing for Georgia Tech. They want to really prove themselves, they got to win this one. If they could win this matchup, this would really catapult them in the ACC standings, because you want to know how close the ACC is in terms of the standings? Georgia Tech, Louisville, Pitt, and Florida State all have one thing in common. They're all 12-2. That's just how close the ACC is. The next closest team to those 4 is Miami, which is 9-5. But the difference between Florida State and Pitt, Louisville, Georgia Tech is Georgia Tech, Louisville, and Pitt all have 21 wins. Florida State only has 8. And that's no knock on Florida State. Florida State has had a little bit of an up and down season. I think they're starting to find their bearings in the ACC. And they only have 2 losses, to Louisville and Georgia Tech. That Georgia Tech one they probably could have won, but sadly they didn't. So this one is very important for Pitt. They have to win on the road, because if they can't win on this one on the road, I don't see how they're going to win at Wisconsin or how they're going to win at Nebraska or any of that sort. But all in all, that's going to be a barn burner of a matchup in the ACC. That could determine who wins the ACC and who doesn't. Though it's such a tight race, like I said, with Georgia Tech, Louisville, Florida State, and Pitt. I just think that's rather impressive that Florida State pulled off that win over Pitt. And Pitt did rebound with that 4-set win over Miami, but it's kind of Miami. I had a feeling Pitt would bounce back, even though they were on the road. But I digress. Then we have a sneaky good matchup on Friday. We have Georgia at number 10? Yeah, number 10, Tennessee. Again, I didn't put down numbers when it came to these matches, but number 10, Tennessee, hosting Georgia. Now, like I said, Georgia is well known for pulling off SEC upsets. However, Tennessee has to realize something. They're right in the thick of that SEC race. They're only one game back of Kentucky. They kind of have to go perfect throughout the rest of the way. If they can, then they still could possibly host at least a regional game up until the Sweet 16. If they don't, then there is the possibility that they could be on the outside looking in terms of the top 16. But Tennessee is still having a fantastic season. They just cannot afford to go Tennessee sports on everybody, which, no offense to any Tennessee volunteer fans out there, but that kind of means crumbling when it truly matters. And that's no knock against Tennessee women's volleyball. But they have been known for kind of losing to teams that they shouldn't lose to. AKA last year, and I think the year before when they lost to Missouri, which was unacceptable. And then also on Friday, and it's not my matches to watch for unless there's Big West Conference. It's Long Beach State at UC Santa Barbara. This is the battle for first place right here. This could be the battle for who gets the top seed in the Big West Conference and who possibly could be playing Hawaii. For Long Beach State, here's my thing, and here's the thing I forgot to mention with Long Beach State. They have been banged up quite a bit. They have two players that are out for the season. Abby Carrick, who against UC Riverside, she landed on someone's foot and she injured her, I think it was her right foot, and now it looks like she's out for the season, or out for at least quite a while. But bottom line is she's on IR, and it's not looking like she'll be back in time for... She's certainly not going to be back this week, and she's probably not going to be flying out to Hawaii. So, all in all, for Carrick, that is a tough loss. She was actually having a great season, and you got to remember, she transferred from Utah, and to have that injury is just a bummer. And then, she's not really a big-time player, but Mara Hayes does bring a lot of energy, and she has a pretty tough serve. And she suffered this injury in practice, as it looks like she has a torn ACL, which really sucks. So, losing her kind of loses the energy and whatnot. And Long Beach State, I'm just going to say this, and this is not to defend them ultimately too much, but they have not been at full strength throughout most of the season. And I know what everyone's going to say, well, everyone battles injuries, but Long Beach State has yet to have a full roster. Their players have either been injured, they've had COVID, or anything of that sort. And now they've got one of their top players is out for probably the entire season, and then another player is out, and that's probably one of their complementary role players. But winning at Santa Barbara is going to be so tough. They're going to have to play really good volleyball if they want to take down the Gauchos. If they don't, then that could be the difference between playing in the quarterfinals versus having a first-round bye and awaiting the winner of the 3 versus 6, which is probably going to be, at the moment, UC Irvine versus Hawaii. Then jumping over to Saturday's matchups, we have Wisconsin at Penn State, or number 2 Wisconsin taking on number 19 Penn State. Here's my thing for Penn State. I feel they're going to really challenge Wisconsin. Something is telling me that Wisconsin is going to have a little bit of trouble with Penn State. I'll give Penn State some credit. They almost beat Nebraska. I know almost doesn't mean squat diddly jack, but I will say this. The fact that they almost took down Nebraska, albeit they got reverse swept, is pretty impressive. They were actually down 8-3 in that 5th set. They tied it up at 8-8, and then it was 13-13 until Nebraska wound up winning the last 2 points via kills. So all in all for Wisconsin, if they're thinking that they're going to roll into Rec Hall and thinking, oh, we're going to win this one easy, they have another thing coming. Penn State's plays with a lot of pride, and they know they're a whole lot better than this. And Wisconsin has to realize they got to be perfect by the time they play Nebraska on Black Friday. So if they don't, then they can kiss the number 1 seed goodbye, which might not be a bad thing, but it wouldn't shock me if Penn State gave Wisconsin a tough time. And then we also have a sneaky good matchup on Saturday. We have Long Beach State at Cal Poly. All right, y'all are probably going to be up in the comments and probably up in my grill saying, well, why is this a good matchup, Teran? You keep ragging on Cal Poly. Well, I'm just going to say this. Cal Poly showed me quite a bit in their win over Hawaii. It showed me that they actually are gritty and resilient, and they can keep up with the top teams in the Big West Conference. And beating Hawaii at Hawaii is certainly no laughing matter. Now, I don't know how many was at Hawaii back on Friday, as there was actually 4,816, which isn't as much as the Santa Barbara Hawaii match actually had over 7,500, which, woo, man, that's big. But winning at Hawaii is certainly no laughing matter. Now, Cal Poly gets to host Long Beach State, and it's so tough to win at Mott Gymnasium. I can tell you that much. And I know Cal Poly is going to bring a big crowd. My biggest concern for Long Beach State is they're no longer going to be at home in their protection of the pyramid, and also playing in a hostile environment at Cal Poly is probably going to be the thing that maybe breaks them. And not having Abby Carrick would really hurts them. But they do have Hannah Lesiak. Katie Kennedy and Cameron Bacon are playing really well in the middle. Savannah Chacon is also playing great at libero. This is one of those matchups where I wish Cal Poly San Luis Obispo was not super far. Otherwise, I'd go, but I can't. Most likely. Unless someone wants to give me a ride to San Luis Obispo, but I digress. But Long Beach State, if they want to have a good shot at either the top seed or the number 2 seed, aka a first round bye, they gotta win the big time matchups. Big time teams come up in big time matches in big time situations. And I know Long Beach State beat Cal Poly in 5 the first go around, but that was all the way back in the first meeting. That was all the way back in September. I'm sure Cal Poly is a much better team, and they're going to need to really put up a big block against Tommy Stockham, because she could be Superwoman at any point, especially when her team truly needs it. I also failed to mention that Cal Poly is in the Big West Conference Tournament. They have clinched a spot in the Big West Conference Tournament, so only 2 spots remain, and I imagine the teams that will be most likely to be making it are UC Davis and UC Irvine. You have to remember, UC San Diego cannot make it because of the Division 1 through the Division 2 to Division 1 transfer rule, or transition rule. So UC San Diego cannot partake in the Big West Conference Tournament, nor can they partake in any postseason tournament, whether it's the NIVC or the NCAA tournament. And I know everyone's probably going to say that's an unfair rule, but I don't write the rules. All right, jumping over to Sunday, we have number 25 USC taking on number 9 Washington State. And I actually did have this on my matches to watch for. Now, USC, I know they're a good home team. They beat Washington State the first go-around. But can they win at Pullman? Can they have a big-time win on the road? I know they have a big win. I forget who they've actually beaten on the road. I don't know who their big wins on the road are. I mean, maybe it was Illinois. No, well, they have the win over Purdue. They have a win over Purdue. That's a big win right there. They have a win over UCLA, which I guess is okay. I mean, that's kind of good. But other than that, they haven't really posted a big-time win. And they're 4-8 on the road, so don't be surprised if Washington State slaps USC back to reality. Or in Larry B's case, if USC plays like the Raiders do. No offense to the Raiders, of course. Then also on Sunday, we have a pair of sneaky good SEC matchups. We have Georgia at Kentucky and Auburn at Missouri. So Auburn at Missouri, here's the thing for Auburn. If they lose this matchup, they're out of the top 25. Missouri beat them the first go-around. I would not be surprised if Missouri wound up winning this matchup. Believe it or not, Missouri is actually not too far behind Auburn, and they're actually ahead of Florida in the SEC rankings. It just goes to show that Don Sullivan's actually done a pretty darn good job, even though Missouri lost a huge portion of its team due to transfers and whatnot. So keep an eye out for Auburn. I'm watching you, Auburn. You better not disappoint me. I gave you your flowers when you pulled off that impressive win over Florida, but now you got to show me otherwise. And then Georgia at Kentucky. If you remember the first meeting between Georgia at Kentucky, Georgia pushed Kentucky to 5, but that was when Kentucky didn't have Reagan Rutherford. Now with Reagan Rutherford back and the offense is humming like a machine, don't be surprised if Kentucky wins. But remember, Georgia is well known for pulling off SEC upsets. Remember what they did against Arkansas last week. Then they've pushed many teams in the SEC to 5. So do not be surprised if they give Kentucky and Tennessee fifths. But all in all, those are my top matches to watch for in Week 12. Again, I kind of had to do it last night before the AVCA coaches poll standings came out, as opposed to me doing it after the coaches poll standings come out, just because I had to move the show earlier, just because I have a press conference I have to attend, and then I also have to go to the doctor. Don't worry, I'm not dying. And then I have other plans ahead of myself later on in the night. But on that note, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, that I drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to Patty Bax, Davidson Crooks, Jen B, and Larry B, who are in the chat room. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in and all of your support. I should be back for another episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And I promise y'all, I should be back either on Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, maybe Thursday. I'd probably bet Friday, though. But we'll see. Time will tell. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action. I know I did when I covered Long Beach State men's volleyball, and I got to talk to all those players, and I covered a lot of volleyball. Keep an eye out where I'm going to be at, because it could vary. Until then, have a great rest of the week, and I will see you soon, if not Friday, for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Peace!